All right, welcome everyone. We're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we're here for Keep Your Hands Off Eizouken, Episode 3.
Ooh,
okay.
Boy.
Yeah, they've got themselves their little setup.
They do indeed.
They've got actually quite a big setup. It's just that it's kind of empty for now.
It's got to be spruced up. And they did get funds, you know.
They have a budget. It's quite low, but it is a budget.
And they also got some money from the video that Kanamori released before the school told her don't do that. And it got featured on TV.
Yeah.
And now everyone knows that they did that. So, yeah, hopefully that doesn't come back to bite them.
If not, they can bribe them with the money they get from selling the sofa,
Exactly.
The million yen, sofa.
Right.
I like that that's a thing that they just casually have in there. Yep. And Tsubame or Mizusaki is just like, oh, what? I mean, yeah, sure.
Whatever, it's no big deal.
And they're just like,
we could solve all our money problems. We just go onto eBay or something. Yeah.
Yeah. So, y'all, without further ado, let's get into this. Too far. Ah,
nice.
Yeah. That's a cool, kind of beginning idea there.
Yeah.
It's got the Pixar lamp element to it, Classic. Ah, yes, that.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Very cool.
Let's get easy breezy, y'all. Build a resume. Easy breezy. Easy breezy. Easy breezy. Easy breezy. Easy breezy, easy breezy, easy breezy, easy breezy. Easy breezy. Maintenance! You're standing on the 1 million yen couch! Yeah. Dilapidated, yes. Association room, yes. Yes, good! They're bringing that up.
No. Oh my god. What happened to it? Oh.
Jeez. A moment of silence.
Yes.
Yes. That will be my prayer too. Oh my god. No. Wait, a feast! Wait! Indeed. Mercilessly bring down the hammer.
You do that. Don't hold back.
No, she cannot. I think it's also something where, you know, the act of doing something isn't necessarily... Yeah, exactly. The actual scope of it is not thought about yet. Kind of was like, I'm not hearing any noise out there of repairing. Gotcha. So it'll bond immediately. Oh, that is a good point. Ha ha ha. Right. Just a little bit.
Meanwhile...
Yep.
Oh my god.
To the roof! To the dangerous heights above. Actually, oh, okay, it's not too crazy.
Yeah, I guess they don't need to use the whole facility for the actual drawing.
Oh my god.
Oh, no, that looks super dangerous.
Yeah.
Because if there's holes in it, then there might be places that are almost holes.
Jeez. No fatalities.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yes. This is wonderful.
Yeah, it was like, at the beginning it's like, I can see where some of this is kind of relevant to the repairs. And then it's like, nope.
Yep. Oh, it's awesome.
Wow.
Well, I guess they're just gonna have to have Kanamori raise the ladder again.
Yeah.
No, it's supposed to go Kanamori, come on. Yes, control room
Responding
here.
in kind, okay.
Oh my god, the way she moves.
Wait, she can't get out?
She closed the access point with a big desk or something?
I guess.
Whoa!
Oh!
Whoa!
There we go.
Yeah, how did you get down? Oh my gosh. Alright.
Right.
So heavy, this beard. Ah,
I see.
Very cool.
Very nice.
The tournament arc begins.
Yep. That's cool.
Yeah, for sure. That's actually a really good point, though. Yeah, 55 days, yeah. Jeez, okay, the math here. Oh. Cool. All right. 3 minutes, though. Holy crap.
Yeah.
I like that they're talking about frame rate and all that. You can see her in the background there. her model
Oh, I didn't
picture
notice
there.
that.
Yeah. She's even up there again.
Oh,
as well.
yeah.
And there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Ara.
She totally changed her voice too. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yep. Oh, cool. Oh, this is way too much.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's getting into pseudo multi-dimensions and stuff. This is awesome.
Although maybe if they're able to get situations where there's a static background.
Okay. Yeah, to her. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. I was gonna say that based on the size of it, it shouldn't be able to fire without getting like completely knocked backwards. Ah. Oh, cool. To plane. Yeah, but reality, I guess. Whoa.
Wait, while drawing?
That's so cool.
Awesome.
Oh. All kinds of stuff, yeah.
Sure.
Oh my gosh.
That sounds
that might be a bit much. Okay.
all right.
Here we go. All right. Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
Okay.
That's a really good idea. And it's just the eyes, which are what most people need to get invested in the characters, just be able to see their eyes. Ooh.
Nice.
Go Kanamori, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Right. Nice little clever way to keep the Wow.
All right.
Oh my gosh. Ta-da!
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Awesome. I hope we get to see the final, thing all put together.
Well, the point I think is that we get to see the slow and arduous process of it getting to the final product as well, because like when I think about people that are like friends of mine who, get into like that beginning stage where they're making animation and such, I've seen so much excitement come from 12 seconds of animation.
Oh,
Where they're just like, I'm like, whoa, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And they're like, and I'm like, yeah, it's awesome. And they're like, oh, you don't get it.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh.
They're like, no, that was 12 seconds with, 24 frames per second.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That was 288 frames that I drew for that.
Right.
Yeah.
And, it's their first time doing any kind of animation themselves, right?
Right.
Yeah. But I couldn't imagine having to do
3 minutes.
Not only the 3 minutes thing, but they're going to do any kind of sound design to it. I think they're going to end up realizing they can't do sound design at all, because it's going to take away from the visuals.
Yeah, if anything, maybe Kanamori could help with that while they're doing the actual drawing.
Like, I hope it comes up as like a thing where they're like, we might have to kind of just do this silent,
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We
got ourselves a project that they're going to be working on that they can then present to the school in order to get more funding.
Right.
Now, in the process of getting more funding, though, they're probably going to find out just where their limitations are with regards to this, because as Kanamori's brought up, these other two girls love to get distracted and just focus on whatever's in front of them instead of doing the very specific, kind of, little work here and there.
Right.
Yeah.
Which could potentially be a bit of an issue.
Just a little bit, yeah.
Aside from the fact that, definitely not 5 minutes of animation, because that would be insane. 3 minutes, maybe you can do that. But even that, like 3...
Yikes.
Oh, boy. That's a lot. Like...
The fact that they're also willing to actually do 24 frames per second, I think, is kind of crazy.
Like, I don't know,
because I don't think most stuff actually at like the thing maintains 24 frames per second across the board.
Yeah, I think a lot of the time it's more like 6 or 12. Like in anime specifically.
Yeah,
because
it's usually not that much. That's a film number.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Like I remember in the opening for the OP for Famofu. Now maybe this is because it was a while ago, right? But that was still, KyoAni. In the OP, there's a point where like it's doing like this rotational shot or whatever, and you can tell at that point like, yes, frame.
Right.
I would say probably it would have been around 6 or 12 each second.
Yeah, but I'm guessing their thing is that we need to make this actually look really good because we're trying to sell people on our club.
Yep.
So 24 frames is actually required. Otherwise, people are going to go, something about it, I don't know, feels a little bit clunky.
Yeah.
But that's crazy, though. 24 frames per second with 3 minutes, that's something where you get into the levels of, like 3,600 and... No, it's over like 4,000 frames or something like that.
Well, 180 seconds for 3 minutes, so it's a lot.
Well, it's 3,600 just if you do 20 frames per second. So then if you add 4 more onto that,
it's a 20% increase. So yeah. Although I did not get 24 frames per second from what they said in the episode.
Did they not say that? Pretty sure Kanamori was like, "Hey, in order for us to actually like." Make something that brings this up. Yep, deadline is only 50 days. Assuming we animate on 2s, 5 minutes of footage requires 3,600 frames. Factor in all post-animation work, and you would have to work 24 hours a day for 50 days. Okay, so
3,600.
So animating on 2s.
Yeah, let's.
Meaning,
I'll reverse engineer this to figure out what exactly animating on 2s means.
So 300, it's
Because for 5 minutes, that's...
It's 12. It's 12 frames per second.
Oh, okay, yeah. So 12 frames per second.
Okay, yeah, that makes way more sense now.
Yep.
I was going to say,
right,
that would be nuts.
But that's still insane, because then 12 frames per second, they're doing that with 3 minutes, so that's,
Yeah, so then...
180, 1800, and then add 2 more times 180, so that's 360, that's 2160.
It's a much simpler way to do this, which is you just, reduce that by 40%.
40%. Yeah. That's true.
But yes, exactly.
So that's a lot. That is an awful lot. Mm-hmm. And for 55 days, that's holy shit. Even with the two of them going at it. That's
I think what's going to be the thing that really makes it hard for these girls is that I really identify a lot with the problem that Mizusaki or Tsubame Mizusaki brought up, is that I need kind of a story in order to be inspired to keep going.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm guessing that that's probably something that will work for the first 25% of the actual drawing. But it's actually going to be the people nearby you that are probably going to keep you inspired and working hard and quickly. Because in some ways, that's the thing that makes Asukasa so great. And something that, Mizusaki brought up was that, hey, what's great is she went out there to do the work, even though she doesn't know the scope of the work.
Right.
And this episode is about saying, what's the scope of the work? Well, before we know that, we have to know what kind of things we're making so that we know what it actually is going to look like. So they actually put a bit of a framework here in place for what the scope of the work will be. Animate, 3 minutes of footage at 12 frames per second.
Yep.
In just over 50 days. I could see 3 people actually doing that. I could see 3 people doing that. But not 3 high schoolers.
Right.
Who have no experience with this.
Well, and really, it's 2 people doing the drawings, right?
Yeah, because you're right.
Is not a drawer.
No, that's a really good point.
Now, that is helpful, because then hopefully Kanamori can make it so that they're just focusing on drawing, right? They're not doing any of the other stuff, and they don't have to worry about the concepts of the art and things like that, the designs and whatnot. They already have those. They figured those out, in an afternoon, right? Yeah. So now they just need to do the whole thing.
When they say animate on 2s, are they meaning that 2 frames are used between the actual movement into the next frame? So it takes 2 frames of the same thing before you would see any kind of change? I
think so, yeah.
So because are they actually kind of cheesing out 6 frames per second in a lot of ways?
Well,
it's like a scuffed way of doing...
I think it's the other way. That if I think it's basically working down from a 24 frames per second actual video footage thing. So there's essentially so the frames will be
divided in half.
Right, so the frames will be doubled up, because that's how fast
Gotcha. That actually makes a lot more sense. Yeah, then if they're doing that, it's 12 frames, then it's still the same amount of time for something that would be convenient, I guess, to the eyes of the people, and maybe they have little minor differences or something like that they can sprinkle in so that it looks like there's that little bit of static, not static-y, but a little bit of constant movement.
Yeah, I mean...
Because if the drawings aren't all exactly the same, they wouldn't want to photocopy the exact same drawing.
For 2 frames, I don't think it would be noticed.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because that's 1/12 of a second.
Yeah, it's true. I think the human mind can only process, or the human eye can only process things down to 1/4 of a second, right?
Yeah, I don't know what it is. I think the general rule is that 24 frames per second is what the human eye tends to think looks the most natural, and then for animation, it's not going to look at the same fluidity as real life, maybe, but 12 frames per second, probably not going to be able to tell.
Right. Yeah, that's probably the case as well. Seeing that they've got their plan in place, they had a little, adventure of being like, well, okay, let's just patch up the roof.
Right.
Because we can get hail or rain and stuff like that. But I loved the little bit of showing how Asukasa's drawings lead to these little moments in the story, because this undermines a core aspect of something that I think I assumed quite a bit with anime. Yeah. And it's actually quite easy to remember if you realize that almost everything anime related is adapted from manga. That the visuals came before the story. In fact, in some ways, the visuals will like almost always come with the story, even when it's not manga and anime. Like, think about it.
Yeah.
How many times have you been inspired by a concept of a story versus a picture in your mind of what the story would look like at a specific point? So, like, are you inspired by the idea of writing a story with a, you know, some kind of a wholesome family dealing with this, you know, struggle of the everyday life or what have you? Or is it the picture of them at a table and the kids eating and the parents aren't?
Right.
Yeah, what is the...
I think for me it might be different just because the way my outlet for creativity with storytelling has been writing, which doesn't have a directly visual aspect.
No, but I'm talking about your imagination, and meaning that
for my imagination it's definitely through visuals.
Right, which I'm saying is that all story starts in imagination.
Right.
First. Mm-hmm. So in some really kind of beautiful way, manga and the process of adapting anime out of manga is almost the purest way at getting at what our imaginations are constantly doing. Is saying, hey, here's some raw images. Mm-hmm. I need you to adapt these into something that is actionable.
Right.
So your subconscious mind bubbles up all these images and stuff, and you're like, I feel like creating a story.
Mm-hmm.
But you didn't feel like putting words on a page. You felt like evoking in someone else the same images, but you needed some kind of a format to communicate that.
To do that, yeah.
And that, guys, I think that's it. I think that's why anime is something I love so much. There are way fewer filters to get to that point from someone else's imagination going and get infused directly into my own.
That doesn't mean it's easy by any stretch of the imagination.
In fact, it's probably
direct.
Right. In fact, it might be even harder in some ways because you have the processes themselves that go between them having bigger percentages of the problem being tackled. Right. So if you filter it out, it becomes a much smaller, you basically cut your massive pizza into 24 slices as opposed to the 12 slices here. There you go.
And because like when I think about like how people would do things for like say like live action stuff, a lot of the times it's dictated by what kind of tools they can work with. The TV set, all of that stuff, right?
The actual set itself,
right? What kind of props can we think of as a way to gimmick our way through this visual thing that we need to do?
Right. It's in some ways maybe saying that in the same way that an action anime with the whole cut back and forth almost to an borderline annoying effect is the same kind of easy animation that you have in anime that leads to, some kind of very consistent flow of action anime that's like, this is marketed towards specific people, so it's easy for them to consume, but also it leads towards, some of the more cutting corners animation styles. Whereas in live action, the most common genre for low budget, low effort, kind of cutting corner stuff is horror. Because you engage the imagination, I would say, more directly.
Right. Yep.
By getting at something that's more, visceral.
Primal and
exactly. So you can, have your sets not be that great. You can have your acting not be that great necessarily. You can do all these little things.
Because even if those things are important, it's not as dependent on them. Whereas like in the same way that with animation, no, it's very much dependent on the animation. You can't do it without the things actually moving.
Right. And then the thing that they're bringing up here, which is really cool, is where can we where can we be efficient or cut corners, if you will, to make sure that the animation gets done versus it coming out with a certain level of polish. And I think that's been the thing that's always made me freak out whenever a studio does some kind of anime original thing. Is because that means that we're getting an even less filtered, version of what the manga was, but we get it in the medium that I prefer, like, because I could just read manga and then it's straight from the horse's mouth, if you will, but
there isn't that additional level of refinement where it's also an adaptation, so let's take what was made and then
but like, for instance, we're reading the One Piece manga, right? And there's this really, really well done paneling that happens in like the One Piece manga. If you're adapting that into the anime, they have to on some level basically decide, when you transitioned between this panel and this panel, what frames do you want to show in between that?
How do you want to do it?
So that's something that needs to actually be a huge focus of, I'm guessing, the anime team for that thing. But when we watch something like A Place for the Universe, for instance, Madhouse isn't basing it off of anything that was some kind of written down thing. So all the frames are unique. None of them are based off of anything previously.
And while they would have the storyboarding things and all of that stuff, it's something where it's made specifically for being in the medium that they're in.
But if you think that manga is just a copy pasta storyboarding thing for anime, that just is not the case.
Maybe for some of Miura's panels, and maybe for a fair amount of the One Punch Man manga, yes. But that is the exception rather than the rule.
Things there. That's actually kind of a good point, though, is that depending on how, probably a bunch of things that I don't know about, is depending on how the actual manga or the source material, the drawings, are done, some of them probably fit into the process of storyboarding for an anime a lot better than others.
Yeah.
Because like you were saying, like Miura's stuff with Berserk, that makes a lot of sense. But even still, that's probably where something like Berserk, you could kind of use that as a study to go, here's where, they ported something in the manga and just went boom right there. But then they took that image and just moved the camera up and down to the left a bit.
And maybe we're like, okay, let's tone down some of the detail here because...
Or the classic Berserk, 1997 triple zoom.
Oh, man.
Hey, you got to do what you got to do.
Yep, that's right.
But, thinking back on this, seeing, a girl, with a strange weapon, fighting
a tank.
Yeah. Well, not just a tank. The tank's, not the point, but just fighting a thing. In a nondescript environment. Really gives me vibes, some things. And it's like, that's really cool. Just to think about the idea of, how many people out there are on the, they're not necessarily the artist with regards to drawing the stuff. But they just have an idea of wanting to see certain things move some way. And they're not necessarily even someone that wants to create stories, but they just love the idea of making things move on the page, kind of like Mizusaki. And they're just sitting at home with their computer, just plugging away.
And I love that they all bring something different to the table. Like, I'm curious to see when they actually go into the animation, if it's something where they, you take half the frames, I'll take half the frames, or if it's something where
you work on this batch of frames, I'll work on this batch.
Well, or even you work on all the backgrounds, I'll work on the moving things. So like I'll work on the character and the explosions and all of that stuff.
No, I think they're definitely going to do that. Because we know Mizusaki is the one that actually knows how to draw characters well.
Right. And then that makes sense then why it was specifically for her, of the thing of, hey, but are you good with explosions and smoke and all that stuff, right?
She's like, I've never done that.
But we'll see, and because also with the fight, it's not like, yes, let's have this wonderful background where it's just sort of static and then there's the movement out in front, and then it can be potentially super detailed because you have the one background for maybe 5-10 seconds, right?
Yeah.
Whereas in the case of something like this, where the character is actually like running over the background and interacting with it and things like that, I can imagine it gets way more complicated. And like with doing something like that, would it actually be better to have one person doing a whole frame because then you don't have to worry about like making sure that the background and the characters like match up with how it's moving, or like
so I think there's actually a really good like static kind of way to do this is you do a set specifically and you do a bunch of drawings that are the untouched or unaffected by animation images, meaning that the other layers aren't doing anything with the base one. Then, once those are done, you then give those to the character animator and go, these are the environments you're playing with. You know,
gotcha.
You put your characters on the top of these layers accordingly how you would see fit.
Sure.
And then when those are done, then they go back to the other person. That sounds really slow, but I think you would then be able to do a third layer, which would then be the effects of sorts put on top of that, with then the other kind of things that would be the gaps. So you'd be like, here's a frame here, duplicated, you know. And then like 50 frames later, here's the one now that where the girl actually like steps into frame and stuff and like swings her sword and carves a thing in the ground or something like that.
One of the things that was brought up in Shirobako that I thought was really cool was the idea of basically staggered production, where like, you know, you have one thing that's being worked on and then another thing that needs that first thing in order to be worked on, right?
Yeah, that's the part where it's like, oh man,
and then
get computers in this fast, otherwise.
Right, but then also where you don't want to have backups if, you know, one person is having trouble with doing a particular thing,
right?
You know, but in this case, because there's only 3 of them and only 2 of them are the actual people doing the drawings, is it going to be something where it's like, all right, you know, Asukasa gets, I don't know, 50 frames ahead with backgrounds, and then Mizusaki comes in and is like, all right, and this is what the character's doing within this background.
I think there could definitely be things and stuff like that, but it just reminds me of stuff like where people are saying that, you know, because we were talking about One Piece earlier, the One Piece anime has, because it's a weekly release anime, has stretched its pacing out of how much actual stuff it's adapting to insanely slow levels. Probably because over the course of time, little by little like things have come up where they've had to, you know, slow things up, and they're like, that previous rate wasn't sustainable. Oh wait, now that previous rate wasn't sustainable.
Let's add some more filler in here to let Oda get ahead.
Well, I mean, it's not even just filler. It might just be the way that they have like movements, you know, just taking a longer period of time or repeating or something before they actually show the next, you know, I would call it like a set frame, you know, where it's the actual background changes or something.
Something that I'm really interested to see how they get into in this show is with the keyframing. So like if like, because you're familiar with keyframes. Yeah. But like, because that's where it seems like most of the like structural creativity and design will need to come into play, and then all the stuff in between then is just like, all right, now we need to do, you know, like 200 frames of what's happening from here to here, right?
Yikes, yeah.
Or I mean, I'd probably be a lot less than that because they probably do a lot more keyframes, but you know, and just seeing how that gets organized, I'm really excited to see how they do that.
Yeah, me too. But this is a high mountain they have to climb.
Yes.
And what's probably going to be cool is that once they complete this, they're going to be like, that was easy. Like, they're going to be like,
I'm hungry for more.
I'm hungry for more. Like, let's do something more difficult.
But first, let's go take a day off where we drink some milk. Yeah. And just, because
I don't know. I could see Kanamori really being like, are you kidding me? Breaks? What do you mean?
Kanamori becomes the taskmaster.
Yeah, she's the taskmaster. Yeah. She was like, I will mercilessly bring down the hammer on you all.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. I think it's going to be like, we are 80 frames behind schedule. What's going on now?
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, you're trying to put in too much detail. But I want to, you know.
All right, we're going to need to make it so that, you know, we put in a little bit more in the transition back and forth, you know, with the reused stuff. Or, you know, at this part, we don't need full 12 frames per second. Or
I kind of want there to be a moment where they're hitting a roadblock, and it's because one of them wants to be too, detailed or creative with a specific thing, and it's like, no, we've got to get this thing done.
Yep.
You're putting in too much, basically, into that. That's one of the most disheartening things about a creative is when they're told to produce results, and then it's like, no, you have deadlines.
Yep.
If you can't do it, you can't do it.
Chop.
But I think that's also a kind of a humbling thing with anyone that has some kind of creative thing, is when they go and say, I'm going to make... Like as someone who does like a DM thing or what have you, you're like, I am going to create 17 towns or what have you with fully fleshed out cultures, world stuff, religions, castes, and all that. Why don't you just make one?
Yeah.
And then just start running the campaign at that point.
Mm-hmm. And
people are been sitting on you, like, saying you wanted to DM for them for the last year.
Sure. Yeah.
So.
But now we have a concrete objective for them to move forward, and one of the things that I'm curious to see if it becomes a complication is the grappling hooks. That was one of those things where when they added that in, I was like, oh man, that's going to add a lot of dynamic motion that'll be really cool. But
I think it actually will make it easier.
Oh yeah,
less movement of the legs. So that whole thing of shifting weight and stuff. I feel like then you can get a lot of frames of the grappling hook latched in,
and then the legs just kind of doing this.
No, the legs just back, doing nothing.
Yeah.
Because that can't be done in 2 frames. That has to be done, probably a little bit more than that. Now it could happen really quickly. How they want to make it look cool, which is the name of the game here. But I also would love to see how many projects maybe on the video game side of things started with this kind of, hey, I'm going to sell you an idea.
Sure.
Here's 3 minutes of animation in some kind of a system. It might not be hand-drawn. It probably wouldn't if it was a video game. But, I'd be interested to see, what kind of stuff starts like this.
Yeah.
But, y'all, thank you so much for watching this episode's reaction and discussion. If you want to see the next episode's reaction and discussion right now, though, go check out the link in the description below for our Patreon. You can get on early access there. You can watch full-length timer reactions there, and all this comes with Discord access, so you can chat with us and the community there about this show, about anime in general. You can also talk with Jacob about the sci-fi novel that he wrote.
Yep, wrote a sci-fi novel called Battle Lines. If you want to check it out, it's on Amazon. Link in the description down below.
Yeah, so if any of that interests you, we'll see you there. But until then, we're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we'll see you all next time.